thank you so much for watching our live stream right now. It's a pretty special one for multiple reasons. If you tried to watch earlier, you might already have a clue why it's so special. We are coming to you live from a boat. We're actually floating in the middle of a fjord in Svalbard, which is an archipelago north of Norway, halfway between Norway and the North Pole. So we're halfway between Norway and the North Pole on a boat in the middle of the water, floating, spinning. If you were watching earlier, sorry that the stream dropped, but it was because the boat was actually doing this and our antenna was like really good, then not good, then really good, then not good. And KT Miller, who's my colleague behind the scenes right now making this happen, was struggling to fix it. So now we've got it anchored. She's just doing a great job getting us up and running, and we're going live. So this is so great. Thank you for watching. We at Polar Bears International, myself, Alysa, and KT, have been spending the week with an incredible group called Mission Blue. And so we'll be talking to a few different people today about Mission Blue and about themselves and why they're here. And then I'm also going to talk to one of the crew of the boat that we're on. So we are on the SV Linden. You can look it up. There's a really cool article about it online. It's a sailboat that's all about sustainability. And so I'm going to introduce you to the cook. And he's not just a cook, he does all sorts of things. But they actually grow their own food on the boat. It's super cool. We had a really great time being here with them this week. And we went all the way west up the coast to the northern tip of Spitsbergen. And we were on the Spitsbergen Hope Spot Expedition with Mission Blue. So check that out. We're going to be posting all sorts of stuff when we get back, photos, videos, blogs. So will Mission Blue. They're going to be pushing out all sorts of stuff about the Spitsbergen Hope Spot, what this mission was about, what we saw, why this area is so important, and why we had such a great time together. So it's been super, super fun experiencing this place. And we're happy to be able to bring it to you. I'm just going to talk for a couple more minutes while we let more people join, and then I'm going to introduce our guest to you. So again, I'm Alysa at Polar Bears International. We're in Svalbard, Norway, and we're on a boat, and we spent the week really watching wildlife and just kind of taking in nature. A lot of the times we were the only people in sight at all, and we were just seeing what we saw, and we saw some really, really cool stuff, and you're going to see some photos of that later. But we saw some things maybe including beluga and walrus and all sorts of birds like puffins, which I was really excited about. And we saw some little auks, which were really neat. And we even saw a polar bear mom and cub, which was fantastic. Now, of course, for Polar Bears International, we were, I think everyone was super excited to see the polar bear, but it was really interesting to us. We hear a lot about the polar bears in the Barents Sea, which is the population of bears that we have where we are right now. So the Barents Sea polar bear population is one of 19 across the Arctic. And these bears have a really particular kind of circumstance going on. So these bears are actually losing their habitat faster than any other group of bears right now, polar bears right now, which has been quite interesting to see. Polar bears, of course, use sea ice as a platform to hunt their main prey, seals. They totally rely on sea ice for long-term survival. But here, they already have 20 weeks less of sea ice than they did several decades ago. That's compared to places in Hudson Bay where polar bears have about 3 to 4 weeks less of habitat. And already in those places, we're seeing declines in body size, cubs, and population numbers. So for these bears here to be going 20 weeks with less sea ice already is crazy, and it's just keeping going. So you might have seen some stuff in the news this week about the Barents Sea. It's been called the Arctic Hotspot just because of the way where we're situated here with the different currents and different things going on, you know, climate-wise, and where the cold air from the Arctic is coming down. It just happens to be warming the most here. So it's a very special place to be right now before it changes further. It's a very special place to study polar bears and kind of see how they're changing with the changing ice, what they're doing differently, how they're, you know, hunting or maybe adjusting how they're hunting. So we're just so grateful to be here with Mission Blue for that. It's, you know, really important that people know what's going on, that we can bring this story to you through talking, through science, through art, through photographs, through videos, through all these things. And if you weren't watching before, we would love it if you had any questions. I am going to keep an eye on my phone, so I'm not texting my friends when I'm looking at my phone. I actually have a colleague, thank you, Emily, looking for your questions online. So if you have questions, please put them on the Facebook page or Instagram. Emily is monitoring, and we will answer them as quickly as we can. So, cool. All right, KT is going to throw up a ship photo. So this is the SB Linden that we're on, and in a little while we're going to interview Dennis, who's the cook on the Linden, but so much more. It's an incredible sailboat that took us up and down the coast of Spitsbergen, and it's sustainable. They're all about sustainability as much as they can be. Everyone's really conscious of only taking what we need from the environment, only putting down the footprint that we have to put down and nothing larger. So we ate a lot of the food that they grew here, and we just really enjoyed getting to know the crew. It was absolutely fantastic. So I think we have enough viewers now, so I would love to introduce my guests to you. And again, questions, throw them under Facebook, throw them in Instagram. So we're going to be talking to Courtney, Tucker, and later Dennis. And I'm going to start with Courtney right now. And we were so excited to meet Courtney. We are going to put a link to her Instagram page underneath this video, and please check it out. It is absolutely gorgeous. Courtney is what I would call a climate artist. So she's bringing the science of climate change to you through stunning art, and just does an amazing job. And maybe, Courtney, you could tell people, well, what do you do art about? You could tell them about your corals, and then kind of what inspires you to do that.
Sure. Thanks, Alysa. Yeah. So I am a ceramic sculptor, and I create work inspired by the fragile beauty of the ocean ecosystems, and also the human-caused threats that they face, and especially climate change. And my first love is coral reefs. So I studied coral reefs in school. I have a background in marine biology and conservation policy, and so I know a lot about how reef ecosystems work, and it's just been so interesting for me to be up here in the Arctic learning about this ecosystem that seems so different, but in a lot of ways it has a lot of similarities. So I'm very inspired. Maybe I'll create some polar work now, I don't know, but I create really large-scale art installations that are aimed at inspiring people to care about protecting the ocean and sparking curiosity so that people all over the world want to learn more about it. And so I think that's been a really fun connection that I've had with Mission Blue, and I joined the team back in 2012 and was so happy to start volunteering at first and then working with the communications team to spread the message of conservation and Dr. Sylvia Earle's message of hope spots to a bigger audience in addition to doing my artwork. So
that's actually a great point. Would you be able to maybe tell people briefly who Sylvia Earle is, Dr. Sylvia Earle, and kind of how you know her?
Yeah, so Dr. Sylvia Earle is an incredible oceanographer. She's been working in the ocean realm for over 60 years. She's been one of the deepest diving humans. She's done all these incredible things doing research and explorations around the globe. And in 2009, she won the TED Prize, and she got to make a wish. And her wish was, I wish that you would do whatever you can, whatever you are uniquely good at. I'm paraphrasing, but do whatever you can to save the ocean and do your little part to explore and learn about and protect the amazing ecosystems under the surface of the sea that are so often out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. And so just bringing that back into the conversation and really understanding how much of the ocean is not yet explored, how much it has to teach us, and how we can protect it. So she started Mission Blue with that TED Wish.
I think it's so fantastic. So at Polar Bears International, of course, polar bears absolutely rely on the ocean, but we tend to look at the Arctic ecosystems and these coral ecosystems. I mean, it's all connected. It's we're one global ecosystem, and things we do to help the corals help the polar bears, and vice versa in a lot of different ways. And I just found it so fascinating to learn more about what you guys are doing and about the hope spots. If there's a young student right now, maybe wanting to get into art or kind of being interested in mixing these two worlds, would you have any advice for that person?
Yeah, I think honestly, eccentricity is a virtue. I think if you find something you really love and you're passionate about it, even if it's totally weird or non-traditional, just find a teacher or a parent or somebody who will support you to do that, and just dive in head first and don't look back, because that's what I did. I fell in love with marine biology and art in high school when I was Tucker's age, And I decided that I needed to start sculpting coral reef organisms so that I could learn about them in kind of a three-dimensional way. I think it just helped me understand their anatomy or something better, sculpting them instead of reading about them in a textbook or in addition to. And so it started out as sort of this personal pursuit. And then as I continued sculpting, I realized that I could actually translate the beauty but also the peril of coral reefs and other marine ecosystems through my work and inspire people to care. So I've done, my college major was interdisciplinary in biology and ceramic sculpture, and then I went to a master's program in environmental studies at Brown, and I took courses at the Rhode Island School of Design and combined my master's into this kind of crazy, gigantic art installation that was my first big installation that I ever did. And the design of that piece was informed by interviews I did with scientists and artists who I really admired, talking about the potential for art to inspire coral reef conservation. So it's totally eccentric and definitely not something that was on the course plan or anything that was like offered by any of the schools I went to, but just because I somehow got lucky enough to have the support from a couple of really important mentors and my parents, I was never really stopped. I think people questioned why I wanted to do this weird combination of art and science, and was that really practical? Can you really make a living as an artist? Like, there are all these issues that really concern people, and can actually cause them to try to deter you from following your dreams. And so I just feel really lucky that I didn't have to have that kind of beat down, and I got to just have the support I needed to follow that important, interest that I had, and it's really making my dreams come true. So it's really fun to keep exploring, keep finding new ways of translating the science of coral reef conservation and climate change into art, and make visually impactful pieces. So
thank you so much. We just had such a great time hanging out with Courtney and talking to her more about it. I mean, art is such an important communication piece with people. I mean, it absolutely. So please check out @CourtneyCoral on Instagram. And if you have any questions for Courtney, please throw them in the Facebook page. And we can also help you connect with her later on too if you're watching this in the future sometime. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, we're so excited to see your art and how it progresses. And there is a piece, where is it in Washington, D.C. for Americans that might be there?
Yeah, so there's a piece at the headquarters of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS. They publish Science Magazine. So that's at 12th and H Street Northwest in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. So if you happen to be there, go check it out in person and see where else she's got installations too around the world. So it's very, very cool. Thank you so much, Courtney. So I am going to interview Tucker for a minute here, ask him a few questions. Now, we were so excited to meet Tucker and have him on the trip. So there were 9 of us on the expedition team, including myself, Alysa, and KT at Polar Bears International. And Tucker was by far the youngest, but it was really great to have him. So Tucker, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe like, how old are you? Where you go to school, and then why are you here right now?
So I'm a sophomore in PG High School. I'm currently 15. I'm here as an intern and experiencing what you guys do to help the environment and better study it and better research it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Oh, we're lucky to have you here. How was it being in the Arctic coming from California?
It's definitely colder here, but it's an amazing difference here. Lots of new wildlife and everything like that. The landscape is a huge difference.
Great. We're just gonna move that really quick. Okay. KT's just fixing the audio. It's a bit windy. It got windy. Super windy. So okay. Yeah. And Tucker is an incredible photographer, and we were super happy to be looking at his photos. We were hanging out in a group yesterday. I got to hang out with him and watch him shoot more. It's super cool. So I think KT's going to throw up a few of his photos, and maybe Tucker, you could kind of tell us what it's like shooting this wildlife, and KT can tell us reindeer first. So yesterday was cool. Baby
so reindeer were pretty funny, I think personally, but if you laid down, they would come up to you pretty close, and they're pretty awesome. I got to shoot baby reindeer yesterday, which is my first baby reindeer to see, and that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, they were
Seeing
super
that.
cute.
Yeah, really cute.
Yeah, that was great. I don't have it, KT doesn't have it, but I got a picture of Tucker taking a picture of a reindeer that was super close, so I'll make sure he has that. It was really neat. What's next? Ooh, I was super stoked to see a bearded seal. We hung out with that guy for a while. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was my first time also seeing a bearded seal. All these animals was my first time seeing them. Bearded seal was interesting. It was quite lazy, just laying on the ice, and it seems pretty calm with us, but we got pretty close to it, a few yards away, and that was really cool.
Yeah, it was super chill. And if you can see some of the redness on the seal's face there, our guide Meta, who's incredible and can't be here right now, but she was telling us that the older bearded seals tend to get this kind of reddish patches on the sides of their face because they've been foraging on the bottom of the ocean, looking for bivalves, clams, and mussels and things. And over time, the sedimentation in there oxidizes, and they get kind of red on their head. So that's why it looks like that. But that was pretty fun. Ooh, and the little auk. It's like the northern penguin, kind of, in a way.
So auks were very interesting shooting. We did a small group. We got to land on shore, and Meta, our guide, took us to a spot where they all hung out. And what they would do is they would try to get used to you, and so they would fly in these huge groups and come around and do loops, and eventually they would land on the rocks pretty close to you. And I was shooting, and one came very close to me, about 10 inches away from me, and that shot that KT threw up, that was the closest one. And it was pretty amazing because it would just watch me, and it was this peaceful feeling around them to get that close to something like that up there.
So
it was
cool.
Awesome. It was amazing.
That's so great. So we did have a question come in, and I mean, anyone could answer this, but in your opinion, for you, what was the best wildlife sighting of the whole trip?
It was a polar bear. Not only amazing, did it seem, but like Alyssa explained much earlier in the video, they are in trouble. And what you might think is a polar bear, you might see them have fully bellies and stuff like that, but these bears are in danger of global climate change, and it did change me a little bit to see how our world is rapidly changing, and we have to step up to that as young people. So yeah.
Well, we've sure appreciated having Tucker here. To see 15-year-old like this so engaged in these issues, and we've had some great conversations with him about going back, talking to his friends, and just getting on board with more sustainable living. It's just really exciting to see these up and coming generations be so plugged in to protecting our earth and kind of helping push the rest of us along too. So thank you so much, Tucker. We can post more about Mission Blue and the team also in the comments. And I also was really struck to see the polar bear. So it was the first polar bear that I've ever seen here in the Barents Sea. And it was the mom and cub, and both were quite thin actually, and this should be the time of year when they should be much fatter. Yeah. So the best feeding time of the year for polar bears tends to be in the spring. That's when seals are pupping, there's a lot of easier food around to eat, and that's when polar bears gorge themselves, and then they go through a slimmer, not eating as much period in the summer usually. But it's only June, and this family was already looking thin, so it is worrisome. These bears, we know, are dealing with a lot of changes. They're having to make tough choices about how much to walk and how much to swim, and where to find food. And so it's really powerful to be here right now and see this right now, and then be able to talk to people about how we can reverse this trend. And we've got all these young folks on board and a bunch of you on board, and there's already great things happening in communities all over the world. So check out what's going on in your community. There's a lot of things we can do. We can change the way we eat. We can eat more local. We can eat lower on the food chain. We can walk and bike to work more often. We can move away from massive fossil fuel consumption and support solar and wind power companies. See if there's any groups or coalitions near you working to bring more renewable energies to the masses. The more people that get on board, the better we're going to do. And a big thing is to, support civic leaders that are voting for the environment. Or especially if you're a young person, but at any age, become a civic leader that cares about the environment and make positive changes in your community and support others making positive changes. And, together we can reverse this trend. We know that sea ice especially is very tied to atmospheric warming. And as soon as we can lower atmospheric warming, we're going to get sea ice rebounding. And sea ice is to the ocean what soil is to a forest. It's supporting this whole ecosystem. It was so neat to see some Arctic diving. So, yeah, how can you actually tell us maybe briefly about Arctic diving? Like, what is that about? So I know you don't Arctic dive, but you do dive.
I do dive.
Tucker knows more about Arctic diving than most people, I would think. Just like briefly, what is that about? What? It sounds so cold.
It would seem very cold, and it is. My dad was one of the Arctic divers, and it may seem bland down there, but there was a lot of algae and a lot of plant life down there, and a lot of plankton activity as well. Lots of cool animals.
Oh,
okay.
Perfect. Yeah, and these little things are feeding all the way up to the food chain to these seals.
Yeah, there was even seals around there as well, so that was neat to see.
Very cool. Yeah, this whole ecosystem is just amazing. And you look out here, we see some birds, but it might not look like a lot at first, but you dig a little deeper.
And you get to see a lot.
There's so much going on. These oceans are incredible. Protecting these oceans is so important, and protecting our whole planet is good for polar bears, people, oceans, everything. It's just the smart thing to do. And part of doing that is living more sustainably. And so I'm going to interview Dennis. Thank you so much, Tucker, for being on camera. I'll call you back if there's more questions. But thanks again to Tucker. And so we want to talk to you guys a little bit about sustainability and just kind of pump up the SV Linden, the most incredible boat. I want to introduce you to Dennis, our friend Dennis. We had the best week with Dennis. So Dennis cooked for us all week. The food was amazing. It was sustainable. He does much more than cook, but he's helping design some sustainability aspects of this boat. And I was wondering if, Dennis, you could kind of talk a bit about the Linden's kind of purpose and what you guys are doing here.
Well, actually, as you mentioned, I'm not a cook, but I went on board this ship to be part of designing this concept of sustainability because we are sailing primarily on sails, and lots of the other boats it's primarily on engine, and what we do use engine for, we compensate by planting trees. So we want to keep a record, we want to document everything that we do. It's our first season, and we also want to create a sustainable diet to make our guests and hopefully others as well aware of what they eat. Because like for instance meat, stuff like that, we don't need that much meat, we can get proteins. Otherwise we want to be aware of the nutritions that we get, and to document it we grow our own vegetables, for instance microgreens, as we're growing our own mushrooms also and stuff like that to keep it local. And just if we're able to do this at a boat in the Arctic, then modern consumers are able to do something like it in their own homes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh, it's been so fantastic hanging out with this crew. Could you tell people a little bit about how you have managed to grow microgreens and stuff on board here? There's these little mini greenhouses all along the boat that are gorgeous and amazing.
Well, yeah, we made out of plastic candy boxes that we gathered along the way of the coast of Norway, and especially also in Denmark. That we made into small containers where we could regulate the groundwater to supply those seeds to grow microgreens from scratch, with soil of course, but then to regulate the water. That's some of it. Then we have some fermented hay that's been potted with a mushroom mycelium, so that we're also able to grow mushrooms. So great. That's some of the projects that we're doing.
Oh my God, it's incredible. You guys got to check this out. What is next for the Linden? What are you guys doing for the rest of the summer here?
Well, for the rest of the summer, we have some plans to test out some greenhouses up on deck because, first of all, this has to function as a vessel.
Right.
Of course, it's an old ship and it's sustainable for us to get here. But yeah, and it has to like keep that that feeling of like being an old boat. It has to do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of plastic that wouldn't do on deck. But we want to test out some greenhouses to see if we can grow like lettuce, spinach and stuff like that on a small scale to supply like the crew that gets here, the guests and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's
and to see it, and also it's like to document how much nutrition we get from this. Are we able to keep a sustainable diet, and are we even able to do that in like a small amount of square meters with soil on a boat, which is in fact connected to a lot of superstition. It's not been done that much before because no sailors would like soil on their ship.
Yeah, which is something I learned. That's so interesting. Well, you're a pioneer. You're breaking the rules and you know making us more sustainable. You may hear some birds in the background. There's just like a feeding frenzy of gulls right behind us, which is super great to see. You might get quite a bit of chatter.
Oh my God.
I think there might be. What do you think they're eating? Some little fish or plankton or something? Oh, well, we're going to keep an eye out. Sometimes this can precede a whale popping up if there's a bunch of productivity going on.
Something under sea level going on.
This is just one of the cool things about many cool things about being in the Arctic is that there's always, you never know what wildlife you're going to see, what's going on. Do you have a favorite, maybe not even this week, but a favorite moment on the Linden or a favorite animal sighting?
That was like seeing the blue whale.
Yeah.
Of course it was. It was like so awe-inspiring to see something that big, like in comparisons to the ship. It was amazing.
The blue
see
whale.
Such a wild animal being curious towards us and to follow us swimming underneath the ship, and yeah.
Unreal. That is so cool. And part of, I'm sure, the whale coming up to the ship was that it was this kind of quiet sailboat, good size, and you guys were just coasting, and it was like, it wasn't afraid of you. It was like, oh, what is this doing? That is awesome. Well, you guys are off to Africa later, are you? Yeah. What are you doing in Africa?
Well, we're going to be here at the Spitsbergen for the summer period. And when it gets colder, we're going to sail to Africa. And as I told you before, we're going to plant those trees.
Right.
Like from the...
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the records we keep of how many fossil fuels that we use, because we still have to use some of that.
Absolutely.
When we have no winds. And but we can think further with that. We can think, okay, the heat that we lead out of this ship, could we use that with some copper wires to actually heat up some greenhouses and keep a supply?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a sustainable thought.
See, I love that because we're not asking people to completely change their lifestyles. We're still using some fossil fuels, but we're balancing that out and living in better balance with the nature around us and the resources around us.
It's all about being aware and about how to make it better, how to at least improve some of your behavior here on Earth.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think Courtney had mentioned earlier too, we all have some sort of unique ability to do some sort of change in our life, and that can look different for everybody. But we can all do something better to make, you know, the world a collectively better place for people and for polar bears. So thank you so much, Dennis, for your time. You're just a champion, not even having a coat. We're on a boat in Svalbard, halfway to the North Pole. From Norway to the North Pole, we're right in the middle of it. We're floating. It's incredible. We've had such a great week with you, with Mission Blue. Thank you to Mission Blue sponsors Scuba Pro and Biotherm. And thank you, of course, to Explore.org to help us pull this off today, and all our great sponsors. Okay, cool. So before we sign off, we're just going to show you a couple highlights from the trip, which are super, super cool. Thank you to all the people we interviewed today. They're just champions in this wind. Yeah, it picked up a little bit, so my hands are a little cold, but KT's going to show you some of the cool stuff we saw this week. So I'll let you run through that. Cool, just some inspiring Arctic stuff. We had a great beluga sighting. The walrus were incredible. It was the first time I'd ever seen wild walrus. and they're like disgusting in the best way possible. They are so cool. They're loud and they're smelly, and one of our crew stepped in walrus poop and it was the worst smelling thing, but it was hilarious, and it was just so cool to see the walrus hanging out in the water and not being disturbed, and we kept a respectful distance and just got to like hang out with them for a while. And it was, what a crazy lifestyle just to live in this icy cold water and then haul out with your giant body whenever you feel like it. So that was super neat. Of course, the polar bear, I love seeing all the birds. We had an incredible bird variety this week, super fun. Okay, so KT's gonna pull up the beluga now. So KT had like crazy eagle eyes and spotted this beluga pod from an insane distance and only could see the little spouts. And then a few of the crew went out to get closer to the beluga, and we're able to get a drone a good distance above the whales so they didn't bother them, but we got this incredible view of this pod, and what a neat thing. So we see the beluga a lot in Churchill, and for those of you that like the beluga cam, get ready because it's coming up in a couple weeks, and we're going to be launching it just before Arctic Sea Ice Day on July 15th, and please do join us for Arctic Sea Ice Day. It's just a day to talk about how cool sea ice is, how much it matters to polar bears, how much it matters to people. It is the Earth's air conditioner. No matter where you live, it's helped keeping us cool, and we just do not want to get much warmer, so we need that ice to stay healthy and cool, and we're going to be celebrating it that day and launching the beluga cam. So the belugas are back in the Churchill River. If any of you are following any kind of Churchill folks there, the belugas are back, and we're going to be setting up soon, and it was so cool to see them here. They're long lost beluga cousins in Svalbard, so that was really, really neat and pretty good. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, KT, for getting us live on a boat. Crazy. So we go live from Tundra Buggies, but never a boat. So this was awesome. Thank you all so much for joining. Thanks to Mission Blue for hosting us this week. Thanks to the crew on the SV Linden. And thanks to you for tuning in. We are going to be posting stuff all next week about the trip. More cool photos, more cool videos. So check it out. Ask us questions. And we'll see you soon on the beluga boat from Churchill. Bye.